Dozens of state lawmakers are demanding transparency and accountability from the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah, 82 Democrats and independents signed a letter addressed to the DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin. They're calling for the department to cooperate fully with a state investigation into the fatal shooting of Johan Guerrero earlier this month. The 25-year-old was killed by an ICE agent in Biddeford and was reportedly not a target of ICE's operation. The lawmakers are describing the recent actions of ICE agents all across the country and in Maine reckless.
And the ACLU of Maine has filed 5 administrative claims against federal immigration agencies, alleging civil rights violations by federal agents in 3 separate incidents, including the one we just mentioned in Biddeford. The claims involve allegations including unlawful detention and use of force. The ACLU says it is collectively seeking more than $5 million in damages. This is part of a national effort involving more than 50 claims across the country. And town councilors in Scarborough are calling on Maine's congressional delegation to take steps to close or move the ICE facility there.
Yeah, councilors voting last night unanimously to pass a proclamation at the meeting. Several people gathered outside the meeting to protest ICE. During the public comment portion of things, most residents spoke out against ICE's efforts. Some, though, were in favor. Before voting, councilors did share what they were hoping to accomplish with the proclamation.
Tonight is just the start of a difficult conversation we need to have openly as a community, a conversation that I'm personally willing to continue to see what actions this council may be willing to take. If we want change that lasts, it has to be lawful, defensible, and able to withstand legal challenge.
You know, maybe they are illegal. Maybe they've done something wrong. Maybe they're resisting arrest. But you can't kill them for that.
The resolution also asks the delegation to advocate for more transparency regarding federal immigration enforcement and calls to hold federal agents in Maine to certain standards.
Now, yesterday, Congresswoman Shelley Pingree wrote a letter to the Scarborough Town Council in favor of the proclamation. In the letter, she called the facility a, quote, symbol of fear. She told town leaders she is exploring her options to address ICE activity in Scarborough. She says the town has every right to question if hosting the facility serves the community's best interest. Maine Democrats chose Troy Jackson to face Republican Senator Susan Collins this November, but now some are questioning his eligibility because he already ran for the governor race in the June primary.
So Representative James White, who's a Republican, sent a letter to Secretary of State Shanna Bellows asking her to investigate. Our Christian Harsa has more on this.
But what if Troy Jackson, newly minted as the nominee, can't run?
The law says that you can only run for one of these positions in a cycle. And he's already lost a race, just like some other folks that ran for governor. So he's not an eligible candidate.
Maine law section 331 says someone cannot file for more than one federal, state, or county office at any election.
It is what it is. He's running for another office after he's already lost an election.
I think it's a creative argument, but I think probably a losing one.
Maine law professor Dimitri Baum points towards the word file.
And here Jackson only filed for one office.
Instead, the Democratic Party chose Jackson for the U.S. Senate. Republican Representative James White sees it differently.
So he threw his hat into the ring. He wasn't chosen. He was chosen after he threw his hat into the ring after he lost the governor's race.
White says the problem isn't just how, he says it's also when.
Law says that you can only run for one of these positions in a cycle.
The question is the primary the same election as the general election for the Senate? I think that may be a closer call. I think probably not, but you can make an argument there.
White also argues that this law serves a purpose, preventing candidates from trying again and again.
We have sore loser laws in place for a reason.
The statute here is not really a sore loser statute. It's kind of a dual filer hedger statute.
To prevent someone from hedging their bets by running for the Blaine House, U.S. Senate, and State House all at the same time.
Whereas the sore loser statute is, I ran as a Democratic candidate in the primary. I lost. Okay, fine. I'll just drop out of the party and run as an independent.
The Jackson campaign isn't giving the challenge much weight. Republicans are so worried that Susan Collins is about to lose, they're resorting to cheap tricks. Troy Jackson will harness the grassroots energy in Maine and defeat, Susan Collins wrote a campaign advisor. White's letter, sent on Friday to Secretary of State Shanna Bellows, has gone unanswered. So has New Center Maine's request for comment on Tuesday. On Monday, Bellows did release a list of candidates withdrawn or replaced. Jackson is at the top of the list.
I think somebody could bring the challenge in court and say this person is not eligible. But like I said, I think it's unlikely that she would change her mind, and I think it's highly unlikely that the court would reverse the decision anyway.
That was Christian Harso reporting.